everyone. Welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're diving headfirst into a topic that's been making headlines left and right.
Cyber attacks.
You got it. Specifically, the advanced kind. We see these terms thrown around a lot. Advanced cyber attacks, sophisticated threat actors.
Right.
And it can feel a little like, I don't know, are we talking about digital supervillains with, like, laser keyboards?
Yeah, it can definitely sound like something out of a movie.
Exactly. So we're here to cut through the noise. We've got a stack of reports, articles, all that good stuff.
Lots to unpack.
And our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to break down what makes an attack advanced, the different types you should know about.
And most importantly,
What you can actually do to protect yourselves. Because, let's face it, this stuff isn't just for tech wizards anymore.
and not at all, it's everyone's concern these days.
Okay, so let's start with the basics, or should I say the not-so-basic basics. What makes an attack advanced? I mean, is there, like, an official handbook or something?
I wish there was. It would make our jobs a lot easier. But no, there's no standardized definition. It's more about...
It's got to be more than just, like, someone using a slightly out-of-date version of, you know, whatever software, right?
Right. It's more nuanced than that. Our sources point to things like the level of resources involved. Think like the time, the money, the expertise.
Okay, so basically, how much effort did they put into it? Makes sense.
Exactly. A good example is that Stuxnet worm from a few years back.
Oh, yeah, that was a big deal.
Huge. Some experts considered it incredibly advanced because it wasn't just stealing data. It actually caused physical damage to equipment, which was a whole new level of threat.
Oh.
And the resources required to pull that off. Massive. Years of development, likely state-sponsored, not your average hacker in a basement. But that being said, there were also experts who argued that its impact, while definitely significant, didn't quite live up to the hype it generates.
So it's like one expert's digital nuke is another expert's slightly more sophisticated firecracker.
That's a great way to put it. And then, of course, you have the whole debate around zero-day exploits. Have you heard of those?
I feel like I've seen that term before, but remind me.
So zero-day exploit is basically a vulnerability in software that's completely unknown, even to the developers who created the software.
Oh, so there's no patch, no fix, nothing.
Exactly. And because no one knows about it except the attackers, it makes them extremely dangerous. Now, some argue that the mere existence of a zero-day exploit makes an attack automatically advanced.
Which, I mean, I can see why they'd say that.
Right. While others say it's more about how the zero-day is used. Is it part of a larger targeted campaign? Or is it just, someone showing off that they found a flaw?
Okay, that makes sense. Context is everything. Now, speaking of targeted, our sources highlighted a really important distinction between opportunistic and targeted attacks. Can you break that down for us?
Absolutely. Think of opportunistic attacks like, let's say spam emails. They're just casting a wide net, hoping to catch anyone who happens to click the wrong link or download the wrong thing.
Okay, so basically, they don't really care who you are specifically. They just want your credit card number.
Exactly. Credit card numbers, login credentials, any kind of data they can monetize. It's a numbers game. Targeted attacks, on the other hand, are much more focused.
Like that example we talked about earlier with the political party's email system getting hacked.
Exactly. In that scenario, the attackers have a specific target in mind, and they're willing to invest significant time and resources to breach that one specific system.
So it's less about casting a wide net and more like, I don't know, a laser-focused laser beam? Is that a thing?
You know what? We'll go with that. Laser-focused. Because with targeted attacks, it's not about random data or widespread disruption. It's about getting into that one specific system, whatever it takes. And sometimes these highly targeted attacks are just one small piece of a much bigger long-term operation. Which brings us to
The APTs, right. I knew this was coming.
advanced persistent threats. Now we're getting serious.
Cue the dramatic music.
Imagine, if you will, a group of incredibly skilled attackers, often backed by a nation-state, who are laser-focused on infiltrating a high-value target.
Like a government agency or a major corporation.
Exactly. And they're willing to spend months, even years, patiently chipping away at their defenses. They use incredibly sophisticated techniques.
We're not just talking about those click this link to claim your prize emails, are we?
No. This is next-level stuff. We're talking spear phishing, where they create highly customized emails designed to trick even the most security-conscious individuals. They might spend weeks researching someone's interests, their contacts, their online activities.
So they can make the email seem totally legit?
Exactly. They might even use malicious attachments that look like harmless documents, but actually contain malware that can give them a foothold in the target system. And the persistent part of APT is key here.
Meaning they just keep trying.
Relentlessly. They might get blocked once, twice, 10 times, but they'll just keep coming back with new tactics, new tools, constantly probing for weaknesses.
So their goal is usually about stealing really sensitive data, or maybe causing some serious disruption.
You got it.
Hmm.
Think state secrets, financial data, intellectual property, or even disrupting critical infrastructure.
So we've got opportunistic, we've got targeted, and we've got these long game players, the APTs. And just when you thought it couldn't get any more complicated,
No more.
our sources threw another term into the mix: blended attacks.
Ah, yes, the combo platter of cyber attack.
Right. So what are we dealing with here?
Well, as the name suggests, blended attacks combine elements of both opportunistic and targeted approaches.
So like a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Exactly. Imagine those credit card thieves we talked about earlier. Instead of just sending out spam emails randomly, they might do some reconnaissance and identify a specific online retailer.
Because they know that retailer has a lot of credit card data just sitting there.
Exactly. They might use a targeted approach, like exploiting a vulnerability in the retailer's website to gain access to their system. But once they're in, they're not just going after one specific person's credit card number. They're grabbing every single credit card number they can get their hands on.
So it becomes opportunistic at that point.
Exactly. It's about maximizing their gains, even if the initial entry point was highly targeted. So you see, these categories, they're not always clear-cut.
Right, right. It's more of a spectrum, like with most things in life, I guess.
Exactly.
This has been a lot to take in, but how does this all connect back to us, to our listeners who, maybe they're not running a Fortune 500 company or a government agency?
Well, it's all about awareness, isn't it? The more you understand about the different ways attackers operate.
The better you can protect yourself.
Exactly. It's like knowing how a lock works makes you better at picking a lock, or at least recognizing when someone's trying to pick yours. The same principle applies here.
So it's not just about installing antivirus software and calling it a day.
Unfortunately, no, although those are still good first steps. But it's really about staying informed, being cautious about what you click on, what you download, and recognizing that these days, attackers are getting more and more sophisticated in how they target individuals.
So we've talked about the what of advanced attacks, but before we wrap up, I think it's worth touching on the why. Why are we seeing more of these advanced attacks?
That's a great question, and it's something that security experts are grappling with constantly. Part of it is just the nature of technology. As our systems become more interconnected, they become more complex, which inevitably means more potential vulnerabilities for attackers to exploit.
Right, it's like a giant game of digital whack-a-mole.
Exactly. You patch one vulnerability and another one pops up. But another factor, and this is a bit concerning, is the increasing accessibility of sophisticated hacking tools
We're talking about the dark web.
on other places. We're seeing leaked exploit code,
Yeah.
zero-day vulnerabilities being bought and sold.
So basically, the tools that were once only available to nation-states and highly skilled attackers are now trickling down to less sophisticated actors.
Precisely. And that's a worrying trend, because it means that the barrier to entry for carrying out these advanced attacks is getting lower and lower. Which brings us to something I want you to think about.
Hit us with it.
If an advanced attack is defined by the resources poured into it, what happens when those resources become more widely available? What happens when the tools and techniques become more affordable, easier to use, easier to obtain? Does the definition of advanced change? And if so, what does that mean for the future of cybersecurity?
Okay, that is definitely something to ponder. We've gone from digital supervillains to a whole different kind of threat, accessibility. It's a lot to process.
It really is.
But hopefully understanding these nuances will help you navigate the digital world a little more safely. So that's it for today's deep dives. We hope you found it insightful, maybe even a little bit alarming.
Knowledge is power, after all.
That's right. Stay curious, stay safe out there, deep divers.